and welcome everyone to another season of Race Reviews. This plans on being my second full season, but third year. I started this series August 2014 Bristol Night Race, continuing it for the rest of that season. The first full season was last year, and I plan on making another full season this year. Only Sprint Cup races, and I'm going to be talking about what happened the week before, the weekend, and looking into the next race. But obviously, because this is the unofficial start of the season, there's not really anything to talk about unless you want me to talk about the off-season news, which I don't really plan on doing that. I know I did it last year, I believe, but it's just not that. But I just think you can find it, look it up yourself, and I've already talked about it a little bit in some of my reaction videos and on my new blog, My Racing Talk, which I founded that website, which I basically created that website this past Sunday, or if you're watching this February 14th, Valentine's Day, which, by the way, happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Super Bowl day, basically. And as you can tell by the introduction, there have been a few changes, and I plan on seeing what other changes I can do to the series, either in this video, later in this video, or as the season goes along. Because I said, I think it was like the very last episode of Race Reviews last season, that I wanted to add a couple of the details, and that's one of those details. The song used at the beginning is the opening to Powerman 1000's Action. But here we go. So 2016 Sprint Unlimited, and I guess overall, quick thoughts on the race. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't super spectacular in my opinion. The event, in my opinion, has just kind of, I don't know, like lost its luster as the years go by, because I believe it used to be an event where only the pole winners of the previous year and the Daytona 500 pole winners would compete in special events. So the fields were much shorter than what they've been both this year and last year. But now it just feels like an event that like anyone could get in, sort of, in a way. Because it allows chasers from the previous year, and even if you don't make a chase, and you can even make it into the event if you don't make the chase, a la Casey Mears, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kyle Larson, etc. But overall, the racing wasn't bad. It wasn't super spectacular. The restricted plate package for the restricted plates has been in place since 2014, and it hasn't produced bad racing, but it definitely could be better. But I think we're okay where we are now. And let's see. Well, I might as well get into some of the previous notes. It's not a points race, but it is really the first race of the NASCAR season, and it's also the first race for the new Fox crew, which featured four-time champion Jeff Gordon, and Larry McReynolds became sort of the tech and rules analyst, which I think basically replaced Andy Petrie. And honestly, watching the race, Jeff Gordon wasn't actually and I actually enjoyed listening to Jeff Gordon. I think him coming off of his final season, but doing this for years and racing against the pretty much, I think, all those drivers that were in the Sprint Unlimited, it allowed him to bring like a fresh new perspective that I think the Fox group has been missing, personally, in my opinion. In my opinion, it became obvious that like when it was announced that he would replace Larry McReynolds, I think as time went on, I realized that I wish it was DW, but okay. But overall, I liked listening to Jeff Gordon. I think he'll get better as time goes on. And probably one of the biggest announcements was also Brian Vickers returning to NASCAR after almost a full season. His most recent race was the last year's Phoenix race, replacing the injured Tony Stewart, who this season is his final season, but he's not going to be able to compete a full season because he got injured in a dune buggy incident. As far as Tony Stewart possibly coming back, it could be exactly like Kyle Busch last year, and he could come back by the time of the All-Star race. And as far as my opinion on Brian Vickers as a pick, I think he's a good pick. Experience, and I don't feel like there were that much better options because I think it was either like there were like rumors of like who were rumors like Elliott Sadler, Sam Morris Jr., who also I think could have been decent picks. But Brian Vickers was probably one of the best out there just simply because of experience. But I also have been hearing about how Ty Dillon is also going to run some races, which that will be interesting. And I think that mainly comes from maybe sponsorship ties because Bass Pro Shops is on the car a few times for in number 14, and Bass Pro Shops is the main sponsor on Ty Dillon in the Xfinity Series. So it'll be interesting to see what Ty Dillon does later in the season if these rumors are true. And probably the other big announcement before like practices, etc., was a new green white checker rules, which were basically made with the help of both the sanctioning body and the drivers' council. And the drivers' council was formed last year, late May, early June. And the new green white checker rule, I didn't understand it at first, but now I can explain it much better now. So basically, like, the word overtime is being used a lot, so there's something called an overtime line, and it's going to be different for depending on the tracks. But in the case of Daytona, it's in the backstretch. If a caution comes out on the second to last lap before they get to the overtime line, we're going to keep on doing green light checkered over and over and over again until it happens. But if a caution comes out just past the overtime line, even if it's not the white flag lap, then the race is over. I've been hearing about how this rule was mainly made to prevent or lessen likely of another fall Talladega race 2015, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, see that race or at least read about it, and you'll know that it was a controversial ending. Mainly because, and one of the reasons why it was because of the one green light checker attempt rule of time. Personally, this rule, it's not okay. I think it is somewhat of a step of improvement, but personally, I kind of feel like that what could be an easier way of avoiding green light checkered controversial green light checkered attempts is just simply doing what ARCA does, and that is unlimited green light checkers. And I guess I should point this out there. I'm not a huge fan of green light checkers in my opinion because it's kind of like a gimmick where basically like we're going to like extend the race to ensure a green flag finish, but also I think a more exciting finish in a way. And I guess I'm just more of a racing purist and would like to see all races at the advertised distance personally, and that's how it worked in NASCAR for over 50 years. But also green light checkers also open the door for more chaos, and I don't like unnecessary chaos, and I think it also increases the odds of someone getting screwed of the lead or the leader when he or she earned. But that's just my personal opinion. But so in my opinion, I think a better green light checker rule is just unlimited like ARCA, but this is better than the one green light checker rule for the fall Talladega race, which failed miserably. But anyway, now let's get to practice sessions. Jimmy Johnson wins the pole through the garage and fan selection. Kyle Larson was the fastest in opening practice. Denny Hamlin was the fastest in happy hour. And because Sprint is leaving after this season, this was also the final time the race is being called the Sprint Unlimited. Personally, I was kind of surprised when I heard the name change from the Bud Shootout to the Sprint Unlimited. And I still wish it was called the Bud Shootout. But who knows? With Busch coming back as a sponsor on Kevin Harvick's car, who knows? Next year's event could be called the Busch Clash again, like in the old days. But anyway, that's pretty much all the previous notes. So now I'm gonna introduce a new segment that's basically highlighting my high points and low points. When I looked back at my notes and basically recapped what I wrote, there actually weren't as many low points as I thought there was gonna be, but there were a few. First of all, the finish of the race I found to be disappointing on a number of levels because it ended under caution, and even though this will not be the first or the last time a race ends under caution, I guess any time a finish ends under yellow, it's just disappointing and unsatisfying to me. And I think there one of the reasons why I'm maybe just I think confused, but you could say frustrated as well, is the fact that the wreck happened on the final lap, which took out drivers like Truex, Kenseth, McMurray, Dan Patrick. Is that like the wreck happened, and then all of a sudden, it was probably about maybe like 5 to 10 seconds, even though watching it from my couch, it felt longer. It was like it kind of felt like race control was just sort of like waiting. Now caution. It took them a long time to throw the caution. It felt like it took them a long time to throw the cautions. So to me, I thought at first they were going to just let the race back, and then all of a sudden the caution is thrown. And I kind of feel like I don't know, the caution just felt a little, or just felt unnecessary. I don't know why, because well, I probably shouldn't say I don't know why. It's not like they were going to come back there at over 200 miles per hour. And plus, by the time the caution was thrown, I think they were off the racetrack. I don't know. I haven't seen a replay yet. I might see one soon. But I just didn't really feel like there was really a need for that caution. The second point, and this has kind of been a problem really ever since the COT in part-time 2007 and then full-time in 2008. Since then, is the evil splitters on these cars. I really just don't like how about how a spin, say Joey Johnson for example, he spun all by himself, didn't hit the wall or anything, but when he got into that grass, it just the splitter just dug into the grass dirt, it just destroyed the race car. And I don't know, I just don't feel like a simple spin should cause your day to be over. I wish they would get rid of the splitters because if they got rid of the splitters, it went back to like an air dam / valence. Those types of accidents probably wouldn't happen. And I guess lastly, I just wasn't really into the sort of wreckfest attitude we had in the race. Personally, I don't know, because it feels like ever since, I think like an occasional wreckfest can actually be like a little compelling to watch, but I guess like wreckfest like year after year after year is kind of just like it's my nerve, because I want to see like racing and not wrecking. Because for example, like I remember in 2014, like I think like over half of the field ended up in the garage, and we only had like 6 cars finish the race. 2015 was I think actually mainly the same deal, just more cars finished the race. And then 2016, this year, it wasn't as bad, but it still had a wreckfest attitude with at least like 3 multi-car incidents throughout the race. One at the beginning involving like Brian Vickers, Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt Jr. One in the closing stages of the race between Edwards, Casey Mears, Brett Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Eric Almirola, and the one, of course, that ended the race, Matt Kenseth, Martin Jr., Nagel Patrick, etc. So I just wasn't really into the wreckfest feeling the race had, and hopefully the duels and the 500 aren't the same. I think probably the main high point I take away from this race is just simply, like look at the finishing order of this year's Sprint Unlimited, and look at who look at who got top tens. If there are some positive things that come out of Wreckfest is they usually it can open the door for underdogs to sneak into to sneak to the front and get good finishes. And look at some of these what I consider to be underdogs. Paul Menard, Kyle Larson, Casey Mears, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. They all finished 3rd through 6th, and I know it is a restricted play track, so really like anyone can win at these tracks. But good starts to the season for them. I think probably out of these, the one that caught my attention the most was Casey Mears. He was up front pretty much almost the whole race. I really didn't see him towards the back almost at all. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who got involved in the first crash when I think he cut down a tire or something was wrong with his car. He was able to get a 6th place finish. So who knows? This year could be his breakout season. Paul Menard gets a 3rd place finish, and last year he made a chase. So who knows? This year could be an even better year. And Kyle Larson, who I'm confident at this year he'll get at least one win, and it'll be his first win. And if we look further into the top 10, we have Austin Dillon finishing 8th. Who actually he was like one of my favorites going into it. I thought that he would have a good race. It wasn't as good as I thought he was going to be, but still a solid finish for him. And Greg Biffle, who got involved in the first multi-car wrecking and was able to get top 10 finish. So good race for those drivers in getting those finishes in what was mostly Penske versus Gibbs type of race, And really, that's kind of all I could say. So I guess maybe I might as well also put out this interesting fact. 10 years ago, Denny Hamlin. 10 years ago, pretty much the whole world discovered the whole world pretty much in a way sort of remembered the name Denny Hamlin when he went on to win his first NASCAR race ever in what was then the Budweiser Shootout, and now 10 years later he wins it again. So I think it was in a way fitting that he won. It was also with his new crew chief, Mike Wheeler, I think it was. And Mike Wheeler, I believe in the offseason, Denny Hamlin said something like, that's the crew chief that he wanted. So who knows? Is it going to be? So is him and Mike Wheeler going to be a good pair? We'll just have to find out. But things are already getting off to a good start. And also, if you look at other drivers that are looking strong right off the back, Logano once again is looking strong, and I thought on the Growing Checker he was actually going to snatch that win after not really being much of a factor most of the race. But even though they got involved in a crash, Matt Kenseth was running well. McMurray was also having a good run and actually made some aggressive moves throughout the race. Brad Keselowski was also good. And Johnson, before he spun, was also having a good run. So I guess you could consider those some of the high points. But now let's start wrapping things up by looking ahead to the Can-Am duels. So let's wrap things up here and look ahead to the Can-Am duels, which I do plan on covering. I didn't do it last year, but I do plan on doing it this year. I want to see if I can do every single race, including every single Cup race, including the ones that aren't point races. So I guess just to point the obvious. So this is going to be the third time. So this is going to be the second time in 3 or 4 years, that the sponsor for the duels changed, because 2013 it was called the Gatorade Duels, then 2014 and 2015 Budweiser Duels, and now it's the Can-Am Duels, which I think is kind of probably the strangest name of them all, to be honest, in my opinion. But oh well. So looking ahead to them. So I think pretty much for those 60 lap events, I think we can expect pretty much the same deal. But I think what's going to make the races interesting is obviously like who's going to make it into the 500 um, because under the current cheaters rules, if I could find the okay, yeah, I'm on J-Ski trying to find the Daytona 500 entry list. Um, so we're gonna have so we're gonna have 36 drivers that are already locked into the 500 with 8 having to race their way in. And probably the most notable of all the drivers that have to race their way in is Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney, who is competing for Rookie of the Year this season, driving for the Wood Brothers. It's a shame that they couldn't get a cheater, but I hope they'll be able to race the way into the 500. I think it would be a shame to have an up and coming talent like Ryan Blaney, and a very historical team like the Wood Brothers not make it into NASCAR's biggest race, especially when I could see them very well winning the event. But Ryan Blaney's going to have to race the way in, along with Robert Richardson Jr., Josh Wise, David Gillen, Reed Sorensen, Michael McDowell, Matthew Adamo, and Cole Witt. So those are all the races, and obviously I'm not going to know the entry list for both races until Daytona 500 qualifying is completed. But anyway, I hope they're good races. I hope they are. But pretty much that is it. That is it for the race reviews. In the description, my new website, My Racing Talk, which already has a few blogs posted. For example, the introduction, previewing 2016, and the ARCA race recap, which I think that blog is going to be updated soon. Hopefully, I'll post the blog for the Sprint Unlimited because they are going to be different compared to the race reviews. So I hope you can check this out at some point. So I want to thank everyone for watching this race review, the very first one in 2016. And I hope you also like some of the new features as well. I don't know if some of these new features will last heading into say Thursday night, but we'll just see. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and bye.